Welcome to Soltron. This is a video review for my custom Titan class Tidal Wave. Here's how he scales with my Unicron Trilogy robots. And of course he looks the best with core class and minicon sized robots. Okay, let's get a 360 look at this guy. And I'm really proud of how he turned out. I think his style, his aesthetic is really good. His proportions are great. I think he just looks really cool. And then just from all angles, I think he just looks terrific. All right, and then let's get a look at this head sculpt here. So he does have light up eyes. And then he does have this corn pipe. So very easily just made that out of 2 Lego pieces. And then I was kind of inspired by the Titan Metroplex, so he can also open and close his mouth. And then the switch for his eyes is usually going to be in his chest. But you can see I just used one of these. But yeah, I really think he's got a really good likeness to the original Tidal Wave toy. I actually think this head looks better than the Hasbro one, to be honest. I think it looks more like the toy. It's got these missile launcher ears. I think this, I really love the head sculpt, and I think that really helps sell the whole figure. In addition to his pipe, he does have one other accessory, and it's this weapon. This is basically what I was going for, was making it an anchor. And it's pretty big, like a human could hold this and hit somebody with it. So it's like a human-sized weapon. But it kind of looks like a pickaxe. And then on the other side, you can see that it's actually a submarine. So he can easily hold that in his hands. I think I have to make this shaft more thick, but so it fits better. But you can see that he looks really great and intimidating holding it. There's a lot of poses you can get out of him. You could do a standard over the shoulder pose, and then maybe like, he's kind of hard to maneuver, but maybe even a two-hand. I think I made the shaft long enough that he can two-hand this weapon. Okay, so there he is, like two-handing the weapon. You can see he looks very imposing. Does kind of look like a pickaxe, but oh well. So transforming this thing is very simple. You just shove in the tail, and then these wing sections basically just rotate around the tower of the submarine, and then you get like this enhanced submarine kind of look. I would have liked for these pieces to be black, but that's just the way his weapon works. I guess you could also do it like this if that looks better. That looks kind of cool too, actually. I like that. Or you could even maybe do it like this. So there's some options there, but basically just an enhanced submarine. And then as far as his articulation goes, he does have a double joint neck. So this moves up on an armature so he can get a good looking down pose. So he can look past his chest. He can look up. He's got plenty of articulation on his neck. His shoulders, I had to redo his shoulders. So his shoulders are now on ball joints. So they hold, for the most part, they're pretty strong. There is a couple positions where it's a little bit loose, but overall his shoulders are good enough for holding his weapon, as you saw. And then his elbows do get about 90 degrees, and they can straighten out. And it's kind of a hassle because these little aircraft panels can get in the way, and so can his forearm panels. But he can get but he's got his elbow joint, and then he has bicep rotation on the original ratchets of the Autobot Arc, and then same thing with his wrist. And then I added a ball joint thumb just so his hands would look better than the Arc hands because they looked kind of weird. So now he can actually get like proper looking fists. And he does have the original articulation at the waist, which is now part of a combining joint. So that holds pretty well. You can see he's still pretty sturdy despite that. Go down to his hips. He does have the original Arc hips. So he can kick all the way to the side, all the way forward, all the way backwards. And he's got those nice strong ratchets. So that's not an issue for him at all. And then one of the issues he does have is he does not have knee joints. Just like the original toy, I just kept in the sideways knees from the Arc. And if I was going to do this again, or if maybe in the future I'll modify this, I would give him one of these. So this could rotate around so he can have his regular transformation. It'd basically be where his knee is. And then this can also get about 45 degrees of bend. So he could at least have partial knees. But right now he does not have any knees. I definitely cheated on that. And I just didn't want to have to deal with it. And I was also worried that he'd be too heavy to support these ball joint knees. And then he does have ball joints on the toes, so he can get like outward motion. And he can pretty much do the splits, but he's going to start sliding because he's pretty heavy. Yeah, so he can get a very wide A stance, and then his toes still look more or less natural. And I think I forgot to say he's also got, maybe I didn't, he's got thigh rotation here because he is the Arc still. He does have one other little feature that's probably worth mentioning is his little command or the bridge for the aircraft carrier on his shoulder can open up. You can't really fit a figure in there. The only thing that's going to really fit in there is like these little old headmasters, like these guys can fit in there no problem. And same thing for the knees. These command centers basically open up, and then you could fit maybe a mini con in there. Not really, because there's like some support structures in there I never cleaned out. You can see that gets in the way there. But again, these guys will definitely fit inside of here. You can just close that up. Okay, so I'm just going to throw his pipe in here, and then we'll attempt to transform this guy as much as I can on camera, which will be pretty difficult. So first thing we do is we're going to rotate the fists and put the thumb in, and then we fold up this flap right here for his forearm, and then just fold in the fist, same as the Arc. So that's going to become the side of the aircraft carrier. And then we straighten out the elbows, and then this panel is on a small ball joint, which just came off, of course. Well, okay. So that panel is supposed to stay on. Okay, so his arm is going to look like that. And then you move it a little bit on his joint. And there you can see it's pretty much straight. And then you're just going to take this, and it's connected by a ball joint, and then it's on an armature, like a Lego armature. And then it's just going to clip into place like that. So you can see his arm turn into an aircraft carrier. Okay, there we go, his two aircraft carrier arms. And then for his head, you're just going to fold down his horn here. And then his whole chest is on an armature, so that just opens up neatly. And you can see it exposes a gap, and that's where his head is just going to rotate inside of his chest. And then this section, the chest, also has, I'll should have did this first. The chest has these extra platforms for his ship mode, for his battleship, that just fold out. And then this whole section rotates around just like the original figure. And then we get his head and his battery compartment. Can all just be shoved into this gap up here. And then these shoulder pylons, they're going to be disengaged. Like these are also held in by ball joints, so they're going to just pop off the original ball joint. And there's a second ball joint. You can maybe see it right here that's holding them nicely into place. And then this section here is going to rotate up. And then and then there's this panel on the back. This is pretty fussy and probably unnecessary. It's probably better, like I could just get rid of this panel. It's kind of pointless. But then this whole thing rotates up, and then it rotates around. Okay, I just decided to lay him down because that actually makes more sense. So here's his head inside of his chest. Here's his chest section. Here's the shoulder pylon that I was rotating. And this is on an armature. You can kind of see it right here. And it's got double ball joints. So it's going to just rotate all the way around like this to get it into the correct position at the front of the combined mode ship. So you can see here's part of it, here's the pylon, and then you're going to use this panel. And that's just going to nicely clean up this gap right here and make this battleship look more complete. Okay, now I got the same thing. I oriented the other side. It's really not much fun because double ball joints just have too many different positions that they can be in. But anyway, I also rotated the head around so it fits back in the chest cavity nicely. And then this chest panel is basically just going to settle over the head. And then there's various ball joints on this on the aircraft carrier. And those are just going to all clip together to make the aircraft carrier one solid piece. Okay, and there we go. We got the front half of the combined ship all complete. Now we got to work on his legs, which is going to be kind of a hassle because the first thing we have to do is we're going to have to rotate his waist all the way around. So we're just going to lift him up, rotate that. That was actually not too painful. And then we got to rotate his thighs. Okay, and then a thing I'm really proud of, this is the inside of his shins, or the inside of his legs, his calves, I guess. These are wings. These are the wings of his combined mode, and these actually unpeg, and then they're on an armature so they can get out of the way. And you can see you get this ugly hollow piece. That's the whole reason the wing becomes the leg cover. And then you're just going to use the original arc knee, and then this is just going to rotate all the way up, and you can see you've got this wing panel. You're just going to rotate that down, and that goes basically like this now. I did the same thing with the other legs, so they're both pointing forward, and now you're going to see a lot of things that I kind of over designed. So one thing I was going to use for something else is these parts of the hovercraft rotate all the way around and kind of help make the combined Dark Fleet kind of hover, I guess. They kind of are stands now. And then you have to take these struts that are under the feet. So this is kind of ridiculous, is you're just going to unpeg all these struts from each other like that, right? And then you're going to point these heel sections. So the heel section is going to point forward, and then this is going to close up like this. And then the other struts point forward from the toes, and these are going to connect to these in the battleship. So let me show you what I mean. We're just going to close that up. And then these are all going to peg together to kind of solidify the whole thing. And then this part of the battleship, you kind of just shove and hide inside the hovercraft like this. And then you just peg these sections together. And then make sure the toes are all the way forward on their struts. And that's basically that section all pegged together. Okay, so here's the completed combined mode. I'm probably gonna have to bring it to the floor. There is a problem where these struts are a little bit too long and don't peg properly into here. And I think that's because of the way I made some adjustments later, but these used to be perfectly flat. Now they're at an incline, unfortunately. So that kind of hurts the look. Okay, and here's the combined shock fleet mode. And I think this looks pretty excellent. I think mine actually came out better than the Hasbro one, to be honest. I think he looks really good compared to the new figure that's coming out. But yeah, I think it's a pretty great looking combined mode. And then here he is with a Mini-Con. So you can see that the Mini-Con is almost the right size for him. And then with the Core Class Megatron, that actually looks pretty good too. Okay, and since most of his parts do kind of peg in, he's actually pretty manageable to like lift up and fly around. He actually holds together pretty well. I'm actually surprised. This is the first time I've actually transformed him since putting everything together, and that's why his feet are a little bit messed up right now. But yeah, let's go ahead and go from the nose to the end of this vehicle. Okay, and I have him kind of precariously balanced on the display stands that come with the helicarrier. So you can see he does get kind of a flying mode. The nose is higher than everything else. We got to get his submarine in there too. There we go. I think that's a good view of him. Just got to get higher up. Okay, but enough about that. Let's get into the final form. Okay, so to separate his vehicle modes, we're just going to unpeg these struts from the battleships. We're going to detach the hovercraft. I'm going to actually split this aircraft carrier. That's not really a necessary step, but I think it makes things easier, and I want to try one more thing out. I'm just trying, like, what if the submarine could just wedge between this aircraft carrier, and then he could have a combined weapon mode so that he has weapon storage in this vehicle mode. It kind of works because these kind of look like wings from the front. So that'd be cool, but it's definitely not something I actually implemented. It would be nice if the submarine could cover up this ugliness in the back somehow. Anyway, this video is getting long, so let's go ahead and get to the final step. So we're just gonna raise his chest section here, and that gives you access to his abs, and his abs unpeg, and that's what's actually holding in. This whole ab section will unpeg and rotate, and that's what's holding this back piece together, or his hips together. And then you kind of have to rotate his hips, and then this whole section will open up and release his hips. You can see like the whole gear is still in place, and that's what holds it all together. And so there you have his hovercraft. And then to get the aircraft carriers out, you just kind of torque them from the battleship, you kind of have to get the right angle to disengage them, which is kind of annoying. Okay, there it goes. So that'll get these dull ball joints separated. And then you do the same thing for the other one, which is, one of them is really easy. This side is really easy, the other side's a real pain. Okay, so that's his 3 sections disengaged. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just reconnect the aircraft carrier to itself. Which is having problems. Okay, there he is with his 2 halves put back together. And then there's these panels back here, which just rotate around and of course fall off because they're Lego joints. And there you have the full-sized aircraft carrier, which looks pretty great. And then we have this whole middle section, which is kind of a nightmare. So let's just work on getting that assembled and getting the ball joints in the right place and things like that. And then these panels have to be flipped all the way up. And this section can close back up now that we've got the waist removed. And then there's like a little connection peg right here that pegs into this to peg the 2 halves together. And then this flips up. And then you have the pontoon battleship mostly assembled. And then this joint is going to peg in right there. So you collapse these like sliding joints down so that those will line up. And that will help make everything nice and secure. Like that. Okay, and here's basically the battleship. It's rough looking, I'll admit, but it kind of works. And finally, we'll do the hovercraft, which is already mostly transformed. We'll just open up these feet panels, and then we just collapse everything together. We just sandwich it all together. And then it's good to point the hips down a little bit. And then this does have a couple ball joints, which help clip everything together. Okay, actually I designed this badly, so there is a little groove here. So you actually have to rotate the hips all the way back to robot position to get everything to close up nicely. Okay, so when you sandwich it back together, it'll look like this, and then you're going to rotate these like stand sections back into place. And then you kind of just fiddle with the front of this. This doesn't line up exactly correctly because I didn't design it exactly right. And then you're just going to get these panels down to the bottom of the inside. And these panels will just fold up to the top. And then basically the foot will close over the front. Okay, so there they are, cleaned up for the most part. It's still pretty janky looking in the front, I'll admit that. And then these are supposed to have like a sliding joint that I haven't implemented yet. But basically you just fold these in the back and pretend they're not there. That kind of like covers up some of the hollow ugliness that's happening back here. Okay, so the wing panels would basically fold up like this in the back. Pretty ugly, but I think it's a small sacrifice. And there we have the entire fleet. I think they came out okay. This guy is definitely the roughest looking, but I think he doesn't look too bad with all his extra panels. This is very ugly from the front. You can see there's a huge gap, but from the sides, it's not too bad looking. Some parts don't peg in all the way because I just haven't 100% figured this out, but that's basically what it looks like from the side. Not too bad. And the back view is not too bad either. It's definitely weird looking, but it uses all those battleship parts, so I'm happy with that. And then you saw earlier the submarine looks fine. aircraft carrier I think looked pretty good. Some of the decks are wonky because I just couldn't get them to line up correctly. But he looks pretty good, except for the back is just this floating piece back here. It's very much a cheat. And then hovercraft looks mostly okay. I narrowed his legs so the hovercraft looks less chunky, so that helps. And then these, of course, open up. And you can almost fit. You can see the support plastic in there. I didn't want to trim that. I didn't want to make it too flimsy. So you can almost fit a Minicon in there, but not quite. Okay, and one last thing before I wrap it up. There's this bag of extra pieces. So here's those sliding joints that I'm going to use for the wings later, maybe. I like the wings to have these fan sections just to go to the back of the hovercraft, and then they could be turbines for like the flying mode. That bag came with like these communication arrays for the battleships, helicopters, these airplanes, the communication array for the control tower, which doesn't have a hole for it right now, and then this radar. So it just comes with a bunch of little extra pieces just to make it more detailed and more nice. And then some more of these little flat cannons that are on the sides here. They're very small to see. And then a couple more turrets that I never got around to putting anywhere. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that review. It was pretty tiring. I think I really like the way mine looks compared to the Hasbro one in the combined mode, or in the robot mode and the combined fleet mode. I think these individual modes look kind of terrible, to be honest, but these were like my last priority, so that's not surprising. And it's definitely not fun to transform, so I think Hasbro will be a lot more fun to own in that way. So yeah, I hope you liked that review. It's been a long time coming, a year and a half at least, and I'll see you in the next one.